So it's not too often you actually have a Daytona right next to a Superbird. So I figure it's the perfect time to compare and contrast the two cars, because despite being different cars, obviously one's a Charger, one's a Roadrunner, there are actually some changes made to the noses and the spoilers in particular, but we'll go ahead and highlight some of those different features and what makes the cars two different, especially coming out in 1969 versus 1970 for the Superbird. Now, it's also important to point out that the Daytona is significantly rarer. They produced many more Superbirds, so you're more likely to see a Superbird. There's actually quite a few Superbirds here already that are going to be selling at auction, so it's important that we point out both of these changes. Now, starting with the Daytona, you can see our nose here. Now, taking a look at the nose, you can see we have our intake for a radiator for cooling right here, and then you can see the nose is very pointy, especially compared to the Superbird, which has a significantly more round nose. Now, the round nose in the Superbird was made after a styling choice because the Plymouth styling artists thought that it looked better being more round. Now, one of the other changes they added that was actually functional is the fact that we have a bigger intake in here, which was there to try and help the cooling and overheating problems that they had with the Daytona. But that's still not quite nearly big enough to really solve those overheating problems when you're running a race car at max RPM. But anyways, moving on, now graphics packages aside and stuff, obviously we have the fender cutouts are on both cars, which would be cut out for the race cars. And we have a Charger body on one, obviously, and the Roadrunner body on the other. But some of the other changes would be the fact that the Superbird received a vinyl roof, whereas the Daytona did not. So these were all painted, obviously. But perhaps the most exciting part would be coming to the rear where the spoilers are as well. So looking at the Daytona first, we can see how comically big this thing is. It's actually like taller than the roof line because the engineers wanted to make sure that the spoiler could actually receive clean air as it came in over the race car. Now, one of the interesting parts is you'll see how far back it is mounted on the body. So you can see there's really not much room between that and the end of the car, and it's a fairly upright design. Versus the Superbird, they moved the spoiler forward significantly. You can see there's a lot more room. You can feel like my whole hand in there. And the spoiler is significantly more swept back, so it looks sleeker. Now, that might be better for trying to sell some of the cars that were sitting stagnant on dealer lots, but it turns out that the Charger Daytona was actually the faster race car because it had a lower drag coefficient of about 0.29, which is kind of funny considering this car came out first and this car came as the revised version of the Daytona, which I thought is kind of funny. So the drag coefficient for the Superbird is about 0.31, so it's technically a slower car compared to the Daytona. I just thought I'd share that with you, kind of a fun fact. If you enjoyed the video, could hit that like button for me, I'd really appreciate it, and consider getting subscribed for more content like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching.